Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. Lights out, fans, podcast members. Really appreciate you guys. It's going to be a really good one. Super excited about this one. Darren Elkins, another Indiana Hoosier.
Not only is he an Indiana Hoosier, he's somebody that's done the Midwest grind. So that's kind of our specialty. Like anything in the Midwest, we can kind of usually get our hands, you know, on top of what type of situations they were in on a personal level. So he's somebody that we've all known for many years.
Yeah, you know, I'm excited about it too, because I booked him once and I didn't get to book him again, and I had a good relationship with his team. But you know, I was leaving the sport and he was beginning his rise, so I got to see him at the very beginning, and I'm eager to catch up with him because he's different than many of our other interviews in that he just fought 2 weeks ago. I mean, I know we had Eric Anders and you know, we got a couple active guys, but there's a different feel to the interviews. I think we'll see what he gives us when they're active. It's different than when they're retired, I think. I don't know. You know, I'm excited because they're much more edgy now, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So, Chris, what kind of plugs you got? You got a couple things coming up.
Absolutely. You know, BKFC 20, baby. I can't wait. It's going to be on August 20th down in Biloxi, Mississippi. If you get a chance to check it out, check it out. All
right. So if you're in the Florida area, September 18th, I'm hosting World Class Grappling in Tampa, Florida. And then in October, the Olympiad. I'm doing the Olympiad as well. I'm hosting the grappling tournament, World Class Grappling, at the Olympiad in Orlando, Florida in October. So if you guys are some jiu-jitsu guys, you guys like that ground karate, come on out. I got you in September and October in the state of Florida. Miguel.
Yeah, I'm just going to basically toss out a little plug for my buddy Dennis Hallman, 50 Fight Club member. We've got him on the roster already interviewed. Obviously a UFC star in the past, and he's retired now, but he's got Victory Athletics open, and that's up in Olympia, Washington. So if you're in the Northwest, well worth getting yourself over to Victory Athletics and rolling around with Dennis. Dennis has got kids classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, open floor. So bring your kids, get to know him, a chance to train with a real guy from, you know, the good old days kind of thing, you know, and he's like a seed from a real serious tree, Matt Hume. You're not going to learn bad things there in terms of MMA.
I mean, the guy submitted Matt Hughes twice in less than 20 seconds each, so he's legit.
So with Darrick, you guys got to enjoy the interview. We're asking. We're not begging. We're asking that you like, share, and subscribe.
And we're going to ask you guys, and when Darrick comes on, we're going to ask Darrick to go get his brother Darren, Mike, and then we're going to do the interview, all right? Just so you know. Okay. I love you, bro.
I picked up on that, too.
Enjoy the interview.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Darren Elkins. Darren, how you doing, brother? Good to see you again.
Doing good. Good to see you guys, too, man.
Excellent. So out in California now, so a lot of questions for you. We've really, you're one of the guys I always bring up when I'm talking about Midwestern guys in Indiana. I'm saying you just got a bunch of roughnecks here, a bunch of guys who are grinders who come in there, and so I'm kind of proud of you because you're one of my examples all the time. I say like a Darren Elkins, you know what I mean? Like we're just gonna come and we're not gonna do anything fancy. We're just gonna try to beat your ass. So I just want you to know I bring your name up a lot.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I'm with you. Ready to fight yourself. You know how it is, man. We come from a different man. We have we have something to prove. We're fighting our backyards and stuff like that. So it's like, that's what we do in Indiana.
Exactly. So, I mean, a lot of people don't get them. Like, you don't understand the wild, wild West days. Like, I remember fighting and training we had one set of gloves, and I was like, I get the right glove, and you get the left, and we do stuff like that. I'm sure you had this fight in the backyard and stuff like that, no place to train. That's a real thing that really happened.
Yeah, man. I mean, I got lucky, Keith Wisniewski, kind of, they did the whole thing for me. So they went through all that and they kind of guided me through my career, man, to get me to where I needed to be. So I got lucky on that. But, you hear the Keith story, tell me other stories about, he had to pay money to go back to do for his first fights, So he had to pay $100 and he had a fake ID that he was 18 when he was really 16. So I know a lot.
Yeah. Definitely the Indiana grind is where we're probably going to get started with you. And I know that we had at least one fight that I booked you back before you made UFC, and definitely what Chris said. I know Keith's proud of you, and we all are, man. You did a great job. Mike?
Yeah. Okay, so Darrick, how we run this is we take like a microscopic look at your career, and we mostly concentrate on pre-UFC. So sometimes what guys will do is, oh yeah, my amateur career, and they'll skip ahead a bunch of fights. We're not doing that. You got a lot of really cool, fun stuff in your amateur and even like early professional career that sometimes kind of gets lost or forgotten. And that's what we like to talk about here. It's an MMA podcast. So
some different ones. Is that like the same?
A little
stuff?
different. Yeah, it's not your average question.
Exactly.
So Marionette Park, January 24th, 2007. You fight at a bar called 115 Bourbon Street for Cutthroat MMA. When you pulled up to that building that day, did you realize that over 10 years later, you'd still be heavily involved in a sport and your life would be revolved around it?
It's one of those things where I always knew I was gonna kind of make it, but I didn't think I was gonna make it this far for so long. You know what I mean? It's one of those things like, yeah, I'm gonna make it. You never think about I'm gonna be in the UFC for like 11 years later, and 14 years later I'm still fighting. So I don't think I thought about that much ahead. But I'm like, man, I'm gonna fight in the UFC one day. It was one of my first goals. Just fight in the UFC. It's the most common goal for anybody. But now it's like, yeah, I just finished my 24th UFC fight and I didn't think about that, I'm thinking I'm going to retire a little bit young,
So
real quick. Let me jump ahead of you, Mike. Can you go back? What was your background? Were you probably, wrestling? What was your athletic background coming in before you got into fighting?
So I've been wrestling since I was 5. My family wrestled. I have some cousins that wrestled. My dad started wrestling. He was in middle school. So my great uncle, he got us into it. He told us, yeah, you gonna wrestle this year? You gonna wrestle? Well, in the beginning, I thought it was the WWF stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to wrestle. I don't want to get hit by a chair. But like, it doesn't sound fun at all. So he took us to a wrestling meet, a high school wrestling meet. Me and my older brother, who were 2 years difference, and he took us to our first wrestling meet, and I watched that. Like, that's wrestling. Okay, I'll do that. So I started wrestling when I was 5. I won multiple freestyle state championships, multiple Greco state championships, and then I was a high school state champion. My record was 191.
Nice.
191. I took a first, third, and a 7th. So a really, really big background in wrestling. I went to college for a couple years, and then I got into fighting. I've been watching fighting since, the very first UFC. We had, we bought, my dad bought the pay-per-view. We watched the very first UFC. And how I got into fighting is my brother went to high school with Keith Wisniewski, and they were friends. They rode the bus together. He lived right down the street from us, okay? So they became friends because they wrestled together. He wanted to learn wrestling from my brother. And then he'd show my brother some submissions. Then my brother would come home and he'd show me some submissions. And once I got done doing the wrestling stuff, I trained him. I trained a little bit with him, and I told him, I don't think I'm going back to wrestling. I got something else going on. And he's like, hey man, you should start coming in here and training, maybe fight. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I went in there and I started training. I was like, yep, this is for me. So ever since then I've been training, and I love this thing.
So when Keith was a senior, Keith Wisniewski, former UFC veteran as well, his senior year, he fought Shoney Carter in the main event. I think he was 17 years old, and he got knocked out by a spinning back fist. Were you there that night?
I wasn't there, but I seen it like a few days later. I seen the video of it. I mean, he was showing us the little, that little video of it. He put it at his house. He put it in there, and he showed it. Like, oh man, So I never seen it live. I never seen Keith fight live until I joined the gym, but I've heard a lot of things about it, and I've seen some other fights that he invited us to. So I've seen some of those fights live.
He's incredibly deceiving. Like when you see him and meet him and you talk to him, he doesn't come across as the person that's getting in tons of fights. He's Johnny Badass. He's a really nice, decent human being that likes to fight.
Yeah, he's like calm guy you ever meet. I mean, like it takes so much to get that guy angry. I've seen him angry, but even when he's angry, he's like calm angry. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm going to destroy. And you know what I mean? He's like, I'm kind of mad right now, brother. You know, I'm like, what? Look the same. It's the same thing. So yeah.
So
it's
your
like a
first
calm
fight.
guy. And he, you know, but he's, you're saying he's not the most athletic body, but man, he grabs a hold of you. He's so strong.
So there's a local guy named Jay Estrada. Did a couple years in jail. I mean, he's got scars all over his head from getting punched from behind. Yeah, the guy has been in dozens and dozens of street fights. And I remember him saying, baddest dude in the whole Midwest right there. And it was my introduction to Keith Wisniewski. And he had his glasses with the Hanson brothers tape in the middle. And, you know, it's real kind of awkward. And I go, that guy? He's like, that guy's a straight murderer. I thought he was trolling me. Like, I thought he was like lying to me. And he just like, he wouldn't come off the joke. And then I'm like, really? It's like, you have no idea.
You go in there and he grabs a hold. You can't get your arm back. You're like, what? Yeah, I want my arm back, you know? And so, yeah, he's definitely deceptive.
So Jeremy Markham was your first fight. What do you recall about it? And how much time did you train before you took it?
I want to say, so I started training, and I think it was about 6 months. You know, Keith's like, hey, I think you're ready for your first fight. You know, he's like, we're not going to give you a killer, but we got this show coming up. It was Cutthroat. Obviously, you were the promoter, and Keith on it too. He was doing all the matchmaking, and Justin was involved in it too. And Justin and Keith, I was ready. I could be ready in six months. So I was like, I was doing pretty good. I learned a lot of submission defense. Obviously, I could take people down. So I'm like, all right, if you guys think I'm ready, I'll do it, you know. And I want to say it was a Wagner guy, right?
Jeremy Markham was, Chad Wagner.
Yeah, I want to say it was a last minute replacement. Like, hey, what do you got? Well, here's this guy. I mean, so that's what he was good at, giving you one of those guys that you can just beat on like last minute. If you need a replacement, here's your guy, you know. So it was a Wagner guy, and I felt pretty comfortable going in there. I took him down right away and ground and pounded him, and it was a great feeling. You know, I'm in this bar, a smoky bar. You're going out there and you're inhaling the smoke, getting ready to fight. So it's a little different, but I'm like, I can get used to this.
Hey, I got a question here for you. Now, did you say Cutthroat? And Mike is the promoter? I believe Mike is the co-promoter.
Yeah, he was a co-promoter.
Okay. Mike, what happened to your partner on that show? Because you guys rail on me for $50.
Okay, so Darren, Mike Brown came on and we asked him if any promoter ever stiffed him on cash. Yeah. And he said Miguel shorted him $50.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so and it's every one of these interviews we always get somebody. Mostly it's like Brad Kohler, like real shitty promoters like that. Chael Sonnen just outed Dan Severn, stole $20 from him. So we tend to uncover those things. So Miguel, to answer your question, at this time, Keith Wisniewski and I co-promoted the show. Yes. Keith basically really helped me out. Like I was in a jam, he helped me out. And later on, I took on a business partner that went to jail for embezzling like $2 or $3 million. Yep. And I gave him really good advice all the way up until he took his 8 years in prison, and take the deal type advice. And he didn't listen. So he took the time. And if you look him up on Facebook now, he looks like the Ken doll surgeries that people get. He looks like the Ken doll. Like he's going in that direction. It's the most bizarre, incredible transformation you'll ever see in your life. It's good theater. So anyway, Darren, now that Miguel has got that out of his system.
No, it was you and Keith, I remember, and you did, and Keith did all the matchmaking, and I don't know. I think Justin was a part of it later. I don't know if he was on that show, co-promoting with you guys, but I know Justin was part of it too. But Keith was doing all the matchmaking. He set up all the fights, and then you guys kind of ran together. And I didn't have either one of them, but Keith was my buddy, and he treated me good. So I don't think he would let Mike do that to me in the beginning.
No. There isn't anybody I owe money to. There isn't anybody, including Mike Brown.
Keith was very good about making sure I got paid.
Yes.
Let me ask you, Darren. You mentioned Justin there, and Justin's kind of like the forgotten Wisniewski brother nowadays too. And why don't you talk about those two in the gym when you're working out and stuff? Because Duneland was a pretty mean little place, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, Justin was the main coach for Duneland for most of the years. You know what I mean? Later on, Justin stepped back and he left the gym, and he let Keith kind of just run everything. But Justin was my main trainer. You know what I mean? I learned a lot from Justin. I mean, nothing but respect for Justin. But he liked background. You know what I mean? He liked coaching and he liked doing stuff like that. Like Keith was more of like the promoter / matchmaker, and he'd manage a lot of people. He managed me at the time, so he did that stuff. As the coaching part of it, that was Justin's main part. And yeah, man, he was great at it too. I mean, he had some killers in there, and for the skills, the grappling skills that he brought was great.
You guys had a really tough room, man. You guys had a really tough room for Northern India, and it was unbelievable the killers that came out there.
Here, let's run through them. Yep. Josh Shockley.
Yep.
Mark Birch.
Yep.
John Colossi. Yourself.
Eddie Wineland. Yourself. Keith and Justin.
Yeah. Yep. That's legit, man.
That's all homegrown talent.
Yeah, it's all Indiana homegrown shit. Yeah, powerful shit.
And most of us just came straight from that gym, man. But I mean, it was a killer gym in there. You had to go in there, and it was like one of those like grindy practices that no air conditioner. You'd be sweating, and it'd just be like a sweat box, and you'd be slipping and sliding, and I mean, like. You turned on the heat last minute. You couldn't feel your fingers. You had to wait till it warmed up, and it was a rough gym, man. But that's what made us who we were. Just some tough dudes.
Mm-hmm.
There was I went in there several times dropping off tickets, and for an event, and there was almost like a swimming pool effect on the mat of like all of the humidity and sweat. It was like nothing I have ever seen before. Like you could inhale just the vapor of the people that are working out in there. So let's kind of come full circle here. So Jeremy Markham, he's a Chad Wagner guy. He's kind of a body. Darren beats him up. And it was first fight. It's a fair first fight for you because you got to get them first fight jitters out, of which Darren had none. Like he had zero first fight jitters. And like when you talk to people about Darren, there's no baggage there. Like there's very little, he's not a guy that's going to put himself in controversial positions. So he's just, he's very measured with his words and, very polite, on weight, does everything that you need. And, because of that, you don't really need a lot of conversation with him because he's already like finished with what it is he needs to complete. So after this fight, I thank Darren, and Keith goes, yeah, we're going to turn him pro next. And my response is, well, he's got one fight. He just beat up a guy that he was supposed to do that to. And Keith goes, yeah, but I see him in the gym. He's ready. I go, you think he's ready to go pro like right now? And he goes, oh, yeah. No, he's done with the amateurs. So I'm like, okay. And, and Keith really took care of you. Like in regards to how he brought you along, there was a lot of love. There was a lot of love out of Keith with you. Your next fight was against Matt Joseph, April 4th, again, for myself, 2007 at Bourbon Street. And as hard as you were the first fight, you leveled up on the second fight. Like that savage beating you did in the first fight was first fight jitters, it turns out.
Yes.
Because that second fight was a lot different. Would you mind bringing us through like your mental mindset and how that fight came about?
Yeah, so he was able to do another show. And like you said, we talked about the pro thing. It was different back then. Remember too, to be a pro, because there was no commission in Indiana at the time. All you had to do is fight somebody who fought pro before. So you could fight like the guys who are same level as an amateur guy, but all they had was a pro record because they fought somebody who was pro, and that counts as a record. So Keith was really good about giving me that. Pretty much, it was almost like an amateur. This fight was almost like an amateur fight, but it was actually a pro fight because the guy had a fight. He was like 1-1 as a pro, not a really killer, but a good first pro fight. And the guy was mostly a wrestler, and he was really good about giving me guys who I matched up really well with, and he knew submission wise right from the beginning. I got how to get out of submissions because of Justin and just crafty, this crafty veteran stuff that I can just put myself in and learn how to get out of these submissions. So this fight, I stood up a little bit more, not a whole lot, but we did a little stand up. This guy tried to take me down a couple of times, actually. I hit him with a couple of big uppercuts. He tried to take me down again, and I got him down on the ground. I want to say I took his back, and I started pounding him, and then I submitted him, and it was another first-round finish. And, I just felt like I was just on fire at the time. But the gym, they gave me all the confidence in the world. We had all these killers coming up, and I believed in myself from the beginning, and I knew because I was this high-level wrestler who – I was dedicated to this sport right from the beginning. Some of these guys come in there, they're like, I want to be a fighter, and they're not really in the gym. I lived in the gym from day one. As soon as I said, I want to be a fighter, I never left the gym. I still never left the gym. I mean, if you're going to really make this a career, you got to go in and out, be in there every day. And I was one of the hardest workers from day one. And I think that's why Keith's seen what he's seen in me, because, I was in there. He had to kick me out of the gym half the time. Hey, man, we got to get out of here. We got to do something. I'm like, no, man, I want to stay longer. I'm that guy. And it's still the same. It's that mentality that I've always had. That's why I've succeeded in my life. Is I'm gonna sit in the gym, I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna work harder than everybody else. You're not gonna outwork me. Maybe you're a bad athlete, maybe you're better, whatever. You catch me, but you're not gonna outwork me.
That's definitely the attitude you exude, man. I mean, I'm just gonna outwork you, because there've been several fights where you lose the first round. I'm like, that's a tough one, and then you come back at the end and just take it. That's one thing I like, but real quick, I think that a lot of people don't give people like Keith Wisniewski and like Keith Palmer. Those guys were really good matchmakers, as far as not really matchmakers, the right word, but they would pick the right fights for someone like yourself to bring your career along the right way. Developing a fighter is something very difficult to do. A lot of people don't know how to do it.
It's a skill.
Throw people in randomly. It's a skill, and Keith Wisniewski is very good at that.
Oh, he was great at it. I mean, I credit him all the time. Back at what he did to me and how he brought up my career. I mean, I'm like, man, he really strung my career along and gave me the right matchups and pushed me when I needed to be pushed, but he didn't give me like, you see these guys are like, I'm ready, and they get killer after killer after killer, and they're not getting the matchups they really need. I mean, and to be in these big promotions, you don't need a bunch of killers, 2 or 3 killers, and then the rest of the guys can, a stylish matchup that makes sense for you. And Keith was very good at knowing that. I mean, that's the one thing that was different. Like, he wasn't in it just for the money. He cared about the fights. He cared about the sports. I mean? He was a good friend of mine from the beginning, and he really, day one, he watched after me, and I would have been where I am without him, and it was just like one of those things where I could say, hey, he actually took care of me, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, what's nice about that too is that a lot of guys say, all right, follow my path, and he didn't put you through the 50 fights he went through. No. He knew the way to do it real smart. And that's really what you say, the love there,
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, he learned from his mistakes. That's one thing he can tell you. He'll tell you this from, told me this from day one. Look, we're not doing this. We're doing this instead. You know what I mean? Hey, this fight doesn't make sense for you. What's this weight? He wasn't afraid to tell me that. You know what? They want you to fight this guy. It doesn't really make sense for you. This weight. Another fight will come soon. Don't take that fight.
At this point, like when Darrick takes his first fight, he admitted he had 6 months training. So 4 months into his fight career, which is 10 total months, Keith and I are talking quite regularly. And he says, yeah, there's a local show, the Gilbert Grappling. Danny and Joey Gilbert threw a show called IMAC. And they said, yeah, we got this guy, Daniel Wanderlay. He's a black belt. And Keith goes, well, we want that fight. So he's got 10 total months of training. And the amount of confidence that Keith has, I'm saying, hey, Keith, you got 10 months training. I don't know anything, but I do know math. And 10 months of training isn't a long time.
Well, and this is doing jiu-jitsu black belt, you know what I mean? I mean, he's the coach for the Rufus Sports Style Jiu-Jitsu. So, I mean, he had a really high jiu-jitsu background.
You know, I don't want to, you know, rain on that, but I mean, don't sell yourself short, man. You wrestled at a high level, you know, state championships since you were 5. They don't give belts out in wrestling, but you sound like you had some experience too. So, you know, balances out in the end, no?
Keith believed in me and I believed in myself. The rest of the people thought we were crazy. You know what I mean? Like, we took this fight, and I want to say I was a last-minute replacement. I think I took this fight in 2 weeks. And what most people don't know is I was fighting at 155 at the time, and he missed weight by 5 pounds. Wasn't even close. You know what I mean? Like, a replacement. I was the guy who took the fight last minute, and he missed weight by 5 pounds, and he didn't really even try to make weight. You know what I mean? So he's a big 155 pounder, and you know, I was still confident. You know what I mean? So I mean, I always believed in myself, and we were. That was one of those fights that it's classic Darren Elkins. He hit me with a couple good shots at the beginning. We got some scrambles. He had me a little trouble in the first round. And I want to say mid first round, the tide started turning. I mean, those scrambles started getting harder for him, started getting really hard for him. And then I got on top of him and I started, you know, ground and pounding him, and I kept it up. And then the second round, he didn't answer the bell. That was it for him. He had enough. He was broke.
Daniel.
Wow.
Yeah, Daniel Wanderlay is the name of the opponent that we're talking about. He later started, I think he left Rufus, but he was the head jiu-jitsu coach over at Duke Rufus and a Carlson Gracie senior black belt. So at about the 3-minute mark is when the tide turned. And Darren had a couple problems before that, wiggled out of him, and just mentally broke Daniel. And Daniel never recovered. Like, he quit on a stool.
Wow. Yeah. It was, you know, he said it was like a foot injury or something like that, but you could see it in his eyes. He was broke. I mean, I've broke plenty of people in my career now, and he was just like, you know what? This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to answer the bell.
It was a heart injury.
Did you feel that? Did you know you broke him in the fight? Could you feel that?
Yeah, I did. He was really flustered. We got in a scramble, and he thought he was gonna win the scramble. I think we came out of the ring, and we came back in, and then I reversed him. And when I reversed him after that little bit of like where he thought he had a dominant position, I got on top of him, and that's when I kind of took over. He was never the same. He was like effortless. You know what I mean? I thought, okay, I thought he was going to answer the bell. I thought, okay, here we go. But I thought for sure, I'm like, this is in my way now, so I'm going to really turn it up and see what he has.
So shortly after that, so in essence, his second fight's April 4th. April 21st, 3 weeks later, he fights the black belt. And then a month later, I think it was you had somebody fall out. Adam Beady is the person. And at this fight, I had a couple guys that always bought tickets for me, and they always wanted to sit on a cage. They're not sitting anywhere other than a cage. At this fight, they say to me, anytime he fights, I'm bringing my family too. They need to see this. They like there's like artists, performing at Bourbon Street. There's no fights. This is an art show, and I got to bring my family. And your fight against Adam Beady kind of parlayed you into Keith pushing on Miguel to fight Atsuhiro Tsuboi, who is from Japan. So now you've got your first international bout. Miguel, how did this fight come together?
Well, Wisniewski was always in my rotation, so there's a situation there where I knew Keith really well. And part of that relationship was that what Darren said is just the knowledge of the game that I experienced from him and stuff. Like, I knew, every coach tells you, I got the next world champion. Every coach tells you that. Yeah. Yes. You don't take that seriously from every coach. You know what I mean? There are certain coaches that have your attention better that you got to take serious. When Wisniewski says, I knew his touch for the game, that, there could be something there. So we got to bring him in and take a look. So where'd you go in Bodog? Where was that fight?
That was in Vancouver.
Okay. So
Chris Lytle was there for that one. That's the first time I met Chris Lytle. Was in Vancouver when I fought in that one.
I remember that, yeah.
Were you there, Chris?
I was there. I was there cornering
Seidling?
No, it was who was it? I can't remember right now. Think of his name in a minute.
Come on, Darren.
I
Who's the
can't think of
corner?
Scott Hensey. It was Scott Hensey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's who it was. He's right.
Cool. So
I didn't do a very good job corner neither.
Well, at that point, you know, when we're with Bodog, I'm exploring having a couple of different levels of a roster. You know, you got to have your upper guys and guys that are real developed. And Darren, you know, was already coming on the radar, but he was on, you know, like the preliminary stuff. Wanted to take a look at him, and bought in a Japanese opponent for him because it was worth it. You know, I really wanted to see him, motivate him. I knew it would motivate him, you know, so it was good to get that kind of flavor. Japan has that mystique. You fought a Brazilian already, now a Japanese guy. It's a good thing. And so I think it was a good spot. And I'm really sad I didn't get him back.
Yeah. I was the only one. I want to say a little bit after that's when Bodog went under.
Yeah. The Vancouver was, you know, after the pay-per-view stuff. So,
yeah.
So Darren, taking your flight out to Vancouver, we were checking your bags in, and you're kind of, waiting to get on the plane. Is that when you feel like you finally made it? Was it your first? Someone's paying you to fly to an event?
Yeah, I felt like, I'm going somewhere. I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna win this fight. I'm gonna stay with Bodog for a while. You know, they paid pretty good at the time. I'm like, yeah, this is a good start for me. You know what I mean? So, me and Justin's flying out. I'm excited. I'm motivated. The guy who I fought, he was pretty good. He had a lot of experience, so I felt like that's a good test too. He didn't have a great record, but he beat some really good guys, and he had like, 10 more fights than me, 12 more fights than me at the time too.
Yeah, you always want to see how they react to different flavors. You know what I mean? It's like
it's important.
That mystique in the Japanese guys, he probably, didn't wear a black belt jiu-jitsu gi his whole career. He probably didn't wrestle since he was 5. He's coming from a different place, so you never know,
Yep.
You take 8 months off after that fight. Did you get hurt?
No, I want to say, so first we'll talk about how that fight went. It was kind of another one classic. Chris will tell you. I got rocked the first, 30 seconds of the fight. He dropped me with a right hand or whatever. And I shot in. I got desperation. I went to wrestling mode. I took him down, and then I got him in that bulldog choke that I call it the hillbilly front headlock, the hillbilly headlock. You know what I mean? Where I tapped him. So I'm like, all right, I had a good submission on that one. That was one of those times where it was my first time where I faced quite a bit of adversity and kind of turned into the classic Elkins type of fighting. It was the first time was that one where I was in trouble. I found my way out, and then I submitted the guy.
Yeah, well, we joke around a little bit. The Wisniewski gym, nothing but respect, but not a lot of head movement being taught there. Huh?
No doubt. Iron chins maybe, but head movement, not really.
So your 8-month layoff, was it because of a job, or did you get hurt?
Well, I was waiting at the time to see what happened with Bodog. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to fight for Bodog again. You know what I mean? So I'm waiting. And then Bodog went under. And I'm like, God, now I'm like, now we got to figure this out, because I wanted to really. And the other thing is one, I was waiting on that. And then 2 is I was really trying to develop my game. Because I went this fast pass, right? I went a bunch of fights in a row, and I really didn't have enough time to really soak up all the knowledge. So, I told Keith, let's take a step back. Let's work on some more of my skills, and then, in a few months we'll get back to it. I didn't want to be the guy who goes fight to fight, and you really never hone your skills. You see that a lot, right? You kind of learn a little bit of something in camp, but you really don't hone your skills until outside of camp. So I was like, what is going to hone my skills for a while? And then, like I said, we found out that Bodog wasn't going to come back. So I'm like, all right, we'll take a little bit more time. And I was working at the time anyways as a pipe fitter, union pipe fitter apprentice. So I'm like, I wasn't worried about the money. I'm like, let's just hone the skills, get better. And then, when it came around and do it, we got a next fight.
And that's a really wise thing, because I notice too many fighters, what they try and do is, their fight camp is like all this, that's the time to get in shape. That's it. You learn when you're not in fight camp. Fight camp is about getting ready for that one opponent. That's not when you grow, get levels better. That's what you do in your off time. So you did a very wise thing, wise above your years ago, and say, man, I got to correct some problems. And you don't do that in a fight camp. You can't do it in a fight camp.
No, you're in fight camp. You're just focused on, getting in shape, working that fight, and that's it. You're not thinking about the whole game. Like when you're outside of fight camp, you don't care about what the guy's gonna do. You're just gonna learn anything. You're not afraid to go underground. You're not afraid to let the guy take your back and fight out of it, or get on your back, or anything like that. Where in the fight camp, you're thinking, okay, I gotta win these scrambles every scramble. So you're not gonna take as many risks, right? You're like, I gotta win this, stay in shape. You want to keep your confidence high. So you learn a little bit, and I learned a little bit during fight camp, but I learned the most outside of fight camp, where there's no stress and all it is just learn whatever I wanted to learn,
Fun.
At this time, we used to have a legendary promotion here in the Midwest called the Ironheart Crown. And they had probably about a dozen events. And eventually the two promoters split. Like Eric Moon kept the name Ironheart Crown. I think he only did one more show after they split. And Braulio Carrero started C3. So at this point, Darren hasn't made it out of first round yet. Like he's made it to the bell, but the second round has never started. And he's fought on Bodog, so now he's got international experience. So they line him up against a guy named DeCarlo Johnson, who is a fantastic opponent. He's a local coach here. Didn't have much of a professional career. He's no longer in the game, but he's incredibly durable, like incredibly durable. And why don't you take us through what you remember of the fight, and I'll kind of double back with my notes.
So he was, he's very athletic. I remember he's a long, athletic guy who good stand up. You know what I mean? So, I'm gonna get this guy to the ground because he did. He had pretty good stand up, pretty good power, pretty good experience at the time, and we're fighting for the title. I want to say C3 title. So it was the first title type of shot I had of any promotion. So I'm pretty pumped. Like, hey, I finally get one of those belts everybody gets I never had. And the first round, it was a great first round. I mean, I took him down. I had him in a load of trouble. They almost stopped the fight a few times, but they didn't. And he was just, he was, like you said, durable. He just would not quit. And I had him in a couple positions, but I thought, okay, he's going to quit here. He's going to quit. But, he made it out of the first round, and it was a real dominant round. I really didn't take any damage, but he was definitely still there after the first round.
It was, at least minimally 100 unanswered punches from top position that Darren was throwing. I mean, and it wasn't like he wasn't throwing fastballs, but it was consistent, like pop, 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 change position, pop, 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 change position, pop, pop, pop. And when you do things like that, you can get tired really, really easily. So I'm in the stands going, we're about to see the truth on this guy that Keith Wisniewski's telling me is going to be a world, but possibly be a world champion one day. So like I'm just in my head going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm like almost at 100, and I'm like, there's no way he can keep this pace up. And I was wrong. It started again in the second round, where you ended the fight with a standing guillotine. It was some nasty, nasty ground and pound.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm really known for, just ground and pound in those situations. And, man, my cardio from even the wrestling days, that's never been questioned. I'm always going to come in shape. I'm going to come in shape. I'm going to be the best shape guy most of the time. You know what I mean? You're going to have to really come in shape if you want to keep up with me. If you think you're going to win this fight and you want to freaking go 3 rounds with me, you better come in fantastic shape. And that's where, now, if you're not in great shape, I'm going to gas you out, and I'm going to keep bringing it. I don't stop the whole time. Like, I might not be the most athletic, so I don't know how many times I've maybe lost the first round. I'm a slow starter. I'm not a real explosive fighter. But when it comes down to the second round, where it's more a gas tank, more heart, more, blood and guts type of fighter, that's what I excel. From second round on, those are my rounds.
In our little region here, whenever somebody leaves, it makes me like, man, they're representing where we came from. And Darrick, I'm incredibly proud of you for what, every time you're on TV, I'm telling my friends and family, dude, he's one of us. He made it. He's one of us. And one of the people that were at this event also falls into that category. And that's actually the ring announcer, Ray Flores.
Yeah.
Ray is full-time with PBC, does Spanish commentary, and he's announcing with Triller. Miguel, you even brought him down to Costa Rica. I think I may have paid for the plane ticket because I was just telling Ray he couldn't break through. And I'm like, dude, you just need like one international show and everybody else will take you serious. And Ray Flores, like what he's done for boxing, man, nothing but love for that guy.
Yeah, he's doing great, man. He's commentating everything. I think he was doing wrestling there for a while too. I've seen him on, right? Was he doing a little bit of wrestling too? So yeah, he's really came out and freaking he does everything now. He's doing a great job. I always knew he was good anyways. He always took his job really seriously, but it's great to see a guy like that make it.
His dedication mirrors that of yourself in regards to the gym. Like Miguel and I, we would think, man, is this like a show? Is he like kidding us? Is this real? And he's 24/7. That's him. He is the announcer, and he knows how to use words to describe things. Fantastic.
Yeah,
so from there, you
love the sport too. The thing is like he cares about it. I mean, you can feel it when you talk to him. He came to these fights and he was excited every time, dude. And I think that goes a long ways too. Is just like how excited he was for fights after fights after fights.
And he's an MMA guy, and they were using him for boxing. Yep. It's a huge miss on the MMA community, not including him, because as good as he is at boxing, he's better at MMA. He really is.
Yeah, I agree.
He experienced a little bit of the corruption that comes with Costa Rica as well.
Yeah, we did our best. Did our best. I was there for that. All right, you go on and you defend your belt against Ken Klein. You took his back, punched him out. Classic Darren Elkins fight against an opponent that was a little over his head. And then on November 22nd, 2008, you defend your 155-pound C3 title against Pat Curran.
Yeah.
So for those at home, Pat Curran had an incredible run in Bellator, some amazing wins. Joe Warren was one of the most savage beatings I had ever seen live.
Yeah.
And Darren fights him before either of them go on to the next level. Did you know that? What did you know about him before this?
Well, I watched him on the what's it called? He was on that show. I can't deal with all the Tap Out, right? Tap Out's the first time I seen him. You know what I mean? I knew Jeff a little, but I watched that show Tap Out and I seen him. I'm like, all right, they're hyping this guy up. So I'm like, okay, he has some hype behind him, you know? And I knew he was a good fighter. He was undefeated. I think he was like 7-0, and I was like 6-0 or 5-0. We're both undefeated, like almost the same record, you know what I mean? And the fight for the title, and I had to tell at the time, and I told him, I'm not going to fight for that title anymore. I'm going to go do other things, because I really didn't want to fight for that show at the time, you know? But he told me that.
What was the reason?
I just wanted to do other things. I wanted to travel, truthfully, and fight a little bit more. You know what I mean? Okay. Not. I just wanted to travel a little bit. You know, it would be kind of a cool experience to travel a little bit. So I was expecting to fight for the title, for defend my title. Let's put it that way. I think they had something else lined up. I want to say one of our guys was supposed to fight Curran, and he got hurt. So Curran needed an opponent, and I text Braulio, I'm like, hey, listen. If he wants to fight for the title, I'll fight him for the title. I'm like, that's exactly the fight I want. You know, like a big fight, two big names. This is gonna catapult one of us. So
yeah,
like he's like, let me see. He goes, let me see if he'll take it. We'll talk to Jeff about it. I think Jeff was managing him at the time, and he came back. He's like, yeah, we'll do this fight. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Two big undefeated fighters, and I had a feeling that one of us was gonna take off from there, and you know, it turns out we both took off from there.
So, do you remember the first round?
Oh yeah, he got me with a couple. Here's the thing. So he caught me with a couple of things.
Ugly.
I always tell the story. He caught me with some big knees and some big punches. Right, he rocked me a little bit. But you gotta remember, we fought in the ring. It was a ring back then. It wasn't a cage. So I had two takedowns where he was going. I had him by lock. He's going all the way down, but the rope was the only thing holding him up. You know what I mean? Like, ah, man, you know what I mean? So I had him in position. He's going all the way down to body lock, but we had the rope between my arms and him. So the only thing I was holding him up was the rope a couple of times. And then I took him down and we fell out of the ring and they stood us back up. I was on top. We fell on the score table and they stood us back up. And I think that's when he rocked with the big knee. So I was in some trouble that round. It was definitely a crazy round. You know, I felt like, man, if this was the cage, maybe it would be a little bit different for first round, but hard round, you know. But the cardio came into play a second round. Like I said, that's when you know, the fight for me really starts in the second round. And I took him down, and from the very beginning of the second round on, it was all me. So I won the last 2 rounds. I definitely wore him out. I think that was the first really tough fight that he had to fight for 3 rounds too. It's my first time fighting for 3 rounds, really tough rounds too. And I was ready for it though. That's the type of fighter I was. And it was a great fight. People talk about that fight still to this day that's there. It was a great fight. And like I said, it's awesome because now we both look back like, okay, he's been a Bellator champion. I've been a UFC fighter forever. And people didn't even realize how big of a fight that was going to be.
It was a hot crowd. Like,
yes.
I mean, it was literally 15 minutes from your house.
Yep.
And Pat Curran is probably driving a little over an hour, probably an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. But the Curran gym always traveled real well. Like, they would have buses in order to, go to his fights. And the first round that I recalled, it was a 10-8. It was, he had you stunned a couple times. The referee was on his tiptoes, but, backed off. And then in the second and third round, I was shocked at how that tide turned because you smashed them. Like, it was just dominant position after dominant position with a ground and pound. And that slick Curran jiu-jitsu, which is underrated in my opinion. It just didn't work on you at that point.
Yeah, I mean, like most people, they come in there and it's the cardio, it's the grappling. You really don't. I'm one of those guys that you really don't know how good of a grappler I am until you really get in there and you grapple with me. You can look at me and you watch me on TV, you're like, he's pretty good. But until you actually feel the pressure I put, how hard I can scramble, you really don't get the feel of how good of a grappler I am, you know?
At this point, like after this fight, did you realize that Pat would do so well in his career after that fight?
I had a feeling, man. I mean, I had a feeling with both. I mean, he was a tough fight. My eye was black. I mean, I was a little bloody in that one. And I knew that was a hard fight. So I was like, man, I was stoked. I knew it was a big win for me. You know, I talked about it right that night. I'm like, hey, man, this is going to be the fight that most people are going to remember for now, you know? And it was talked about for a while in the area. And, it's all obviously still talked about today. People bring up that fight all the time that interviewed me from the area. But you never know. It's one of those things where our careers change so much. But, he took off before I took off, really. He became a Bellator champion. A little bit after that's when I got signed to the UFC.
And, the thing about him is he had a hell of a career at Bellator. And I think eventually, I hope one day to interview him as well, like much like we are you. I have a feeling that fight was probably the defining moment in his career of where he was at the crossroads and understood what he needed to do in order to achieve the success that he had gotten.
Yeah, he was, we talked a little bit about, I've talked to Pat a few times, seen him in some UFCs, seen him in some local shows. And he's like, you know what? Like, after I fought you, I realized how big cardio was and how much better it could be. He's like, I never experienced anything like that until I fought you. And he's like, from then on, he really focused on getting in better shape and never breaking like that again,
I wish that fight was on YouTube because you can't find it anywhere. I looked everywhere.
You'll never hear that one. I have it. We had it on YouTube for a while, but my wife was drinking that night and she said a lot of words that should never be on YouTube. So you'll never find that fight video ever again. So that one for myself. It's a little embarrassing for her and to me. So I'm like, you know what? Keith had it on there. Like, Keith, you got to take that thing off right away. And he took it off, and that's been gone since.
That's a good move. Good move.
Yeah, really is. Stuff. I'm like, Yeah, I'll probably get a little bit. People probably wouldn't like me very much if they heard some of the words that she was saying about him. But so
Hey,
never.
she loves her man. She loves her man.
No, she has to be crazy if she's married to me. So I mean, I can't expect anything else from her. I respect that.
So your next big fight, all right, benchmarks, airplane rides, black belts. You know, those are incredibly important in the development of a person, especially like a newer fighter. And a first loss is also falls into that category. On September 12, 2009, he fought Ted Worthington on the Duneland Classic, I might add. That was one of the events that Keith and I initially had started. And eventually I kept Cutthroat, he kept Duneland, and we worked together. What do you recall about that fight?
Man, it was another pound. I think he missed weight by 5 or 6 pounds.
Yeah.
He thought it was he thought the fight was at 170, he said. And, like 6 pounds guy. And it's one of those things where as a fighter it's tough because I wasn't very happy with the weight, how the weight was. That's a big difference. He was a bigger guy as is. He mostly fought at 170. But it's one of those things they got how many tickets you sell. I sold probably 200 tickets that night. Turn all the tickets down. No, it's not gonna happen. So, I was like, I'll take this fight. And he didn't have a great record. I knew he was a bigger guy. He had pretty good power. And the other thing I remember about that night, it was an outdoor event, right? So it was that day. It was one of those raining off and on rain. So the mat was real slick that day. And he caught me with a big, I want to say it was a right hand or an uppercut, one of the two. And he dropped me for a split second. And I hit my knees and I popped right back up. I'm probably about 5 or 6 feet away from him. I had my hands up and they stopped the fight. Now, I slipped a little bit because it was raining, but that was it. And then even the ref said that night, man, he's like, sorry. He goes, I know it was a bad stoppage, but it's at the point where, how MMA is. The MMA is crazy. So you just got to kind of go with it. And I learned from that position.
When a referee does that, like Bob Long, who was a referee.
Yeah, Bob Long's a good dude too.
He doesn't, if he makes a mistake, he goes and finds you, apologizes, admits to it. And you ref 100 fights, you're going to have one where, you might not make the best call. At this time, so Darren Elkins comes into this fight at 9-0. And Ted Worthington comes in at 29-16, but a very seasoned fighter. And he's also, I think he was cornered by Josh Neer. So he was one of Josh Neer's training partners. And usually, Darrick, you kind of got out of Darren, dude, I'm like thinking in my head, you're getting out of your, that's 2 in a row, Chris. I got Yves last night.
You said Darren earlier, though, so you had it right earlier.
I get it? Okay. So, Darren, you kind of get out of your normal rhythm. Like normally you kind of go in, hit a straight takedown, or even if you back up a little bit, it's just to kind of set up a shot as they move forward. It appeared you attempted to do something different by doing like a stand-up. You wanted to do a stand-up exchange prior to that.
I wanted to get him, he was I wanted to get him in exchange so I could take him down, but I mean, he hit me with a good first punch. I'm not going to lie to say I wasn't stunned. So it wasn't like the worst stoppage I've ever seen. I definitely was, I hit my knee for a second. Was it a good stoppage? No. I mean, I was mad at the time, but I'm one of those guys that's like, you know what? I've had breaks in my career now. It goes both ways. You get some breaks, you get some good breaks, you get some bad breaks. If you're going to be in this career for a long time, you're going to have both, and you're going to have to learn to deal with them. And I was so upset. I mean, it was your first loss is devastating. And I was thinking that back for a while, but I learned a lot about myself then. You know what I mean? I'm a tough guy as it is. And that just motivated me more. And I just, I sat next to Keith and we talked about what's next. And I didn't let it really affect me that much. Like, you know what? We're just going to keep on moving forward. That's all we can do.
Darren, now I know with myself, every time before the UFC fights, I had, the referees come and talk to you, and I'd always be like, "Hey, you have any questions?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been hit hard, I've been hurt, but I always recover. Do not stop this fight unless I'm not moving." I'll say, "Look, do not. If I'm in a bad submission, don't stop it. I'll tap. If I'm not moving, you can stop it." I mean, And I always try to tell them to make sure they give me every benefit of the doubt. I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. I'm going to stop it if you can't move, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Did you learn after that? Maybe I should talk to the referees. I always make sure I did just in case. I always want to do everything I could.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I learned a lot from that. One is like, now especially in these type of referees position, they tell you they're gonna give you a warning, right? They're gonna say move or something like that. Or they're gonna stop. Like they're not gonna just go, it's over if you're coming back up. They're gonna say, all right, you gotta defend yourself, Darren. You know what I mean? If they tell you to defend yourself, and you're not defending yourself, then they're gonna stop the fight. So I understand that, and I make sure it's clear. Okay, you're gonna say this. Yep. Okay, I understand. If you tell me to defend myself, if I'm not defending myself, and he hits me, that's the fight. I understand that point. And for me, more in my career now, it's not even so much about that. I'm gonna bleed. I tell the ref, listen, I'm gonna bleed. Don't stop the blood. I'll keep fighting. If you feel like the doctor needs to come in and look at the cut, I'm okay with that. But do not stop the fight just because I'm bleeding. I'm going to bleed. You looked at me, I'm probably going to bleed right now. It's not a big thing. I'm going to bleed. Just let me keep fighting.
Yeah. Okay.
Darrick goes on from Ted Worthington to fight an Ultimate Fighter house member. November 20, 2009, you fight Gideon Ray at 155, I might add. So Gideon goes down.
Gideon dropped.
Yeah.
It was 185.
Yeah, he dropped down to 70. And then he was he had one fight at, I want to say, total fight challenge at 155. And then his next fight was gonna be me. So I'm like, I watched him at 155, and then we, Keith worked it out. We got that fight on at 155, and I was like, yeah, that's perfect.
Wow.
Big game. I mean, mostly a stylistically matchup for me. He's mostly a striker, decent grappling, but not a great grappler.
I counted how many punches he landed in that fight against yourself. If you had to guess an over under, what do you think it might be, Darren?
That's 10 maybe.
Yes. Darren took him down.
I landed punches after punches after punches. It was a very dominant fight for me.
It was like, if you looked at the punch count, it would have been like, maybe 300 on one side and maybe 6 on the other side.
Yeah.
And that speaks volumes, because Gideon Ray, he's a bad boy, man.
Oh, yeah.
He's a tough guy. Like, legitimately, his record is right around 500, but you're not going to sit here and tell me he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, he's a phenomenal athlete, and he's a huge 155-pounder.
Yes,
and it was kind of a coming out party, almost like a passing of the guard. And you had Josh Shockley and Keith and Justin Wisniewski in your corner, and it was nice just to kind of see like that show of force of the guys that you're in the gym with every single day walking to the ring and cornering you. And do you recall your post-fight interview?
No, I don't. I can't say. No.
So Darren announces that he plans on going to the WEC, and he's cutting to 145. Those were the two things, outside of thanking the audience. His next fight is in the UFC at 155.
Well, I'll tell a story about that. So I was planning on making 145 because I was starting to just, my body was changing of all the training so much and stuff. So 145 was starting to look like an easy weight cut for me. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking 145 is definitely where I want to go. I think I'd be more successful. And at the time, there was no UFC. That's before they merged. And it was, if you wanted to fight for the 145, the biggest thing was WEC, right? So I'm thinking the WEC is one I'm going to go. My matchmaker for the WEC, who is now the UFC matchmaker, Sean Shelby, called me. And he's like, listen, I got a WEC fight for you. He's like, but it's on like 5 days notice. I go, I can't make the weight in 5 days. I go, it's the first time I'm going to make it. And he gave me, I can't remember the guy's name, but he gave me a tough opponent. And I was decently big at the time. So I'm like, I'm not going to make 45. So I'm sorry, keep me in mind, but I can't make it that soon. And then, so I missed out on that. And 2 days later, the UFC called me. And they're like, we got a 155 matchup for you. And it's in 2.5, I think it was 3 weeks. I'm like, yeah, I can make You know, I'm thinking now I'm making more money in the UFC. I fought all my fights at 155. And it was 3 weeks. So I'm like, yeah, I can do that fight for sure. I'll make more money. Let's do this one instead, you know? So I fought at 155, my first 2 fights in the UFC. And then they merged over with the WEC. And I was like, you know what? I'm dropping down to 145. So it all kind of worked out for me. I fought at 55, 2 more fights. And then once they merged over, I'm like, hey, I told the matchmaker, Joseph, I'm like, hey, I want to drop down to 145. That's what I wanted to do kind of from the beginning. He's like, all right, we'll do that. From then I fought 145.
What they did with Darren was they brought him out to Colorado to fight Duane Ludwig in his hometown at 155 on 3 weeks' notice. Darren, why don't you tell everybody it's a really strange fight? Darren's had a couple weird fights. This is definitely one of them.
Yeah, definitely one of them. So we start the fight out. I take a shot. I missed the first one. I think he tried to throw a couple punches. I shoot. He kind of sprawls. I come back up and I shoot again. And he kind of has me in a sprawl position, but I kept on running my feet. So I ran all the way till we got to the cage. He hit the cage. I locked up a double leg. I picked him off of a double and I slammed him down. But when I slammed him down, he posts his leg. So when he slams it, he has the weight of me and him on his leg, and it breaks his ankle, like a really bad break. The bone just, it didn't come out of skin, but it looked like it was gonna come out of skin. So I wasn't even sure what happened at first. He started tapping and I stopped. You know, I'm like, what the heck happened? You know what I mean? And I looked down and I could see his ankle. I looked at Jumbotron, they showed it, and his ankle was it was destroyed. You know, he was out for a while because of that, but it was just because he posted his leg when I was going for a takedown, and he took the weight of both of us and just snapped his ankle in half.
Wow.
Now, when he was walking out there, I tell the story all the time. They picked him up and he's walking out there, he's smiling, waving to the fans and stuff, and I'm like, I'm about to cry for this guy. I'm like freaked out for him, dude. I'm like, oh God. But he was smiling, he was waving to the crowd.
Wow.
He was out there. I'm like, dude, that's a tough dude. He didn't see, all you hear him was like, he tapped, and then from then on, he didn't show any freaking pain.
Wow.
Did you have the UFC jitters going into that?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of had to. I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, I've been competing all my life. This is all I've done. You know what I mean? You know, my wife flew out there too. It was kind of weird because my wife flew out there and she was extremely pregnant. You know what I mean? She was like a few weeks out from having a baby. You know what I mean? So like, I was a little worried about, this baby could come any day, but she lied about it. She threw a huge fit to get on the plane because they didn't want her to fly. So it was a little extra stress in this one. But as far as the jitters when the time came, like I can live with the nerves. I'm a competitor. That's really who I am. Like I like a lot of the aspects of this sport, but for me, I'm a competitor. That's really why I do it. Not so much the fame, not so much the money. It's definitely a plus. I love it, but it's the competitiveness. I want to be a competitor, and then once we do that walk, I mean, I'm in a different zone from then on out.
Yeah, I saw something recently where you're like crawling up the list of like wins from the underdog position.
Yeah.
This would have been, obviously you were an underdog with Duane. What was your thoughts on that? Does that sit well with you? Does that motivate you, or you're like, I don't care?
Like I said, I posted this, I want to say like a few days ago. I've been an underdog all my life, dude. I hope people bet against me. That never affects me. I mean, some people get spooked and they get scared, and he's had some crazy fights at the time, but I'm thinking, man, if I get this guy on the ground, I'm going to destroy Duane. You know what I mean? Under my feet, but on the ground, I'm like, dude, I'm so much better. He's crafty on the ground, but I'm like, I'm so much better than him on the ground. So I had a belief that I was going to come in here and take the show. Nobody heard of me. So of course I'm going to be the underdog. You know what I mean? Like a guy who, I was 10-1, nobody ever heard of it, versus Duane Ludwig fighting in his hometown, who's had a lot of hype behind him. They're going to definitely bet on him, but never affected me in my life. Even now, they said I have the most underdog wins at 10 now. The last one was 10. Wow. And I have the most underdog wins. So I mean, especially in Vegas. Listen, if I'm the underdog in Vegas, I put on my best performances. So I wasn't Vegas there, but underdog in Vegas, I've had some great performances. I'm like, dang, man, that's where you win the money at. So you see me fighting on the Vegas card, and I'm an underdog, bet some money on me because you're going to win some money.
Darren, when Duane Ludwig and Team Alpha Male had their falling out, was this fight brought up just amongst like your training partners? Just out of curiosity.
Of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, I'm not, you know, I mean, I'm not that guy who's, I'm very level-headed, and I'll talk about it. But I mean, what happened there before I was there? I can't control that. There's some hard feelings, and you know, some things that happened with Duane. And I'll talk about it. You know, we joke around about it. Like, Wisniewski Elkins going to break his ankle again? You know what I mean? But I've seen Duane Ludwig a few times after that. I don't have a problem with him. I have nothing but respect. You know.
Well, and for those at home that are keeping score, Duane Ludwig is a former Muay Thai world champion. And as Darren had mentioned earlier, he was 191-9 in high school. That included, for wrestling, it included a state title. So it's your classic grappler versus striker matchup.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I progressed a lot in my stand-up and, you know, certain things from him, but at the point I was all grappling. I mean, I had a little bit of stand-up, but I didn't do very much stand-up at all. I wanted to get to the ground as fast as I could and smother a guy.
Mike mentioned it, that obviously you're with Alpha Male now, and talk a little bit about, you know, how you talk to Keith about that transition, because I know you had support, and that's very nice and very rare.
2014.
So why don't you talk about how Keith, you know, helped you move on and how, you know, that whole thing went down?
So I just lost another fight in the UFC. I think I lost who was it? Hackran, okay? Hackran Diaz. And I'm very disappointed. I thought I put on a crappy fight. I mean, it wasn't so much. I've had fights that's just like, yeah, I mean, you lose, but it wasn't that I thought that the loss, the guy was tough. I just thought I didn't compete. You know what I mean? I thought I could perform a lot better than that. I felt, you know, I felt off my game. So I felt like I had to do something different. You know what I mean? And this is when Duneland was, it was changing, you know. Josh Shockley retired. Keith retired. Eddie Wineland didn't train with us anymore. So I'm the big dog now. You know what I mean? I'm the only big dog. We had some other training partners, but there wasn't really caliber fighters at the time. I mean, they're great guys. I love the team, but it was something that, like, I'm doing a lot of the teaching at the gym now. Instead of like people teaching me, work with me, I'm doing a lot of this, doing that for them. So I need a little change up. Like I said, I went to Team Alpha Male for the first time. It was like this, just to try it out. I went for like 6 to 7 weeks. And, you know, I just fell in love with it, you know, that it's like out here, I want to say it's like a college atmosphere, you know what I mean? Like a good camaraderie, you have fun, team practices. I mean, just some good stuff here. And I was like, I fell in love with the gym right from the beginning, you know? And so I fought that fight and Keith cornered me that fight that came out for this training camp. And then after that, you know, I thought, you know, I got to make this move. So I sat down with Keith. I'm like, listen, man, I go, I'm going to leave the gym. I go, I don't want any hard feelings. I want you to know before I tell anybody else, you know, because he, like I said, he took care of me. This guy's, he's a brother to me, you know. And I told him, it's a hard, I'm sorry. I know it breaks my heart, but I need something different. And I'm going to go to Team Alpha Male, move to California. And, you know, I think at first I think like anything, he was a little disappointed at first, but he got over it real quick and he understood. I mean, this is like anything, a career move that I had to do. I mean, we had to change something in my career. I mean, it would have been over. So he supported me. And hey, me and Keith, we talk still all the time. He came out here a little while ago. We came to Yosemite. We did the Half Dome climb with his kid and him and my family. And he's still like a really big, you know, a friend of mine. And I always consider him a brother and appreciate what he did for me, because without him, I wouldn't be here.
All right, so let's rewind a little bit. We kind of skipped a little forward. So your first fight's 44 seconds in the UFC. Yeah. Your second fight is against the Bronx, Charles Oliveira, future UFC world champion, and that fight's only 41 seconds long.
Yeah.
Want to take us through it?
Yeah. So I'm fighting him. I think he was like, 20 years old or something like that. Maybe
He's 20.
Yeah. 21. Yeah. I want to say he was 20. This young up and coming, and I knew he was a jiu-jitsu guy. I mean, but I'm thinking, I go against jiu-jitsu guys all the time. You know what I mean? That's fine. I want to go on the ground with this guy, And we go out. I hit him with a couple clean shots. Didn't rock him or anything, but I hit him with a couple clean shots right from the beginning. I get him against the cage. I pick him up, and I'm thinking it was an easy pickup. And I'm like, man, I'm going to knock him out. I'm going to slam him on his head and knock him out because it was a big slam. You know what I mean? So I hurry up and I slammed him as hard as I could. And when we hit the ground, I slammed him so hard, like we separated a little bit, like we had space there, So my knees were no longer underneath me, and he was ready for it. He wrapped up a triangle right away, and he transitioned to that triangle. I'm stubborn. I'm fighting this triangle. I'm almost out of the triangle. I'm out of the triangle. He switches arm bar, and he was gonna break my arm, so I tapped. And it was the only submission loss I've ever had in my career. The first guy to ever tap, the last guy hopefully ever to do that. But I learned a lot about jiu-jitsu after that, what to do and what not to do. And I mean, he's a high caliber, grappler, obviously nothing to be ashamed of, but I was disappointed because now I've had a minute of fighting in the UFC and, nobody knew anything about me. Just one, I broke the guy's ankle, and two, I got submitted real quickly. So it was kind of ironic.
There's roundtables, like in regards to matchmaking, that the UFC has. Any large organization does. And at this point, I have a feeling they're saying, well, we've had him twice. He hasn't made the 50-second mark yet. Here, throw him Edson Barboza, and whatever happens, happens. And that fight got canceled. I believe I read that you had hurt your knee. What was the reason behind it canceling? And are you kind of on the same thought process that I am in regards to their feelings about you at that point?
Yeah, I had a feeling they wanted me out of there. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if he survives, he survives. But it's one of those things where it's like Edson Barboza. And I watched a lot of film on this guy, and I tore my meniscus. And I'm like, so my knee is, it's pretty torn. And if it was anybody else, maybe I'd consider it. But I'm like, dude, he kicks legs like a crazy dude. He's going to tear my knee right off. You know what I mean? I'm like, So I'm like, yeah, I checked it out. My doctor's like, listen, this is a really bad tear. You got to get this thing taken care of right away. So I had to pull out. The only fight I ever pulled out was Edson Barboza. And luckily, you watched that fight, dude. He won that fight by leg kicks. The guy got TKO'd because he couldn't even walk anymore, so they stopped him.
It was I think off the top of my head, I think it was Dan. Was it Dan Stigen?
No, it was Mike begins with no. Lulo.
Like Lulo.
Oh yeah. He was and he won by TKO for leg kicks. I'm going. I had knee surgery, and I'm looking at like, thank God I had a kneecap left.
Yeah.
Healthy, but with a hurt knee and fighting Edson Barboza when he's gonna throw those heavy leg kicks, that was a smart move on mine to get that surgery.
Well, it also bought you time because your next fight's at 145. You actually got to fight at the weight class that you had wanted, and it shuffled the deck in regards to the opponents. Michihiro Omigawa, who is a black belt in judo, 4-time national champion, and yourself, obviously a high-end grappler. So you had two high-end grapplers. And Chris, what do we say when two high-end grapplers usually do?
Stand-up fight.
Stand-up boxing match.
And listen, so I'm not going to say the UFC did me any favors at 145. I mean, it is what it is. The UFC is different now. There's a lot of fighters. Back then, there wasn't a lot of fighters, right? So I'm fighting a top 10 in the world. Like Michihiro Omigawa is top 10 in the world at 145. You know what I mean? He came off some big wins. He's had some great wins in his career. So I'm fighting a top 10 featherweight right off the bat. You know what I mean? And it was a stand up, and it was, my face all bruised up, and I took him down a couple of times. He took me down a couple of times, and I want a unanimous decision, but people talk about the judging and all that. I definitely didn't think I won the third. I thought I won the first two, but it's not my job to do the judging. People thought he got.
You won the fight. You won the fight.
I thought I did. Most people used to always tell me, he got robbed, but I went back and I watched it. If you watch how I fight, I'm gonna bleed. I think a lot of people didn't know at the time because I'm gonna bleed. I'm gonna have a bruised face. Like that's just who I am. You flick me, I'm bleeding, right? So I think if you knew now, yeah, definitely like, oh no, that's an average Elkins fight. He's beating the hell out of the guy, but the guy looked at me, he's bleeding everywhere. You know what I mean? So I won that fight. And that was kind of like so coming up to this point, they talk about the changing and where you see a big shift too. So I'm a union pipe fighter, right? At the time,
597.
I'm 597, baby, Chicago. So I'm still pipe fighting full time, which means I'm doing 40 hours or more, most of the time more. And I'm fighting the UFC. I mean, they give me my time off the fights and stuff like that, but I'm an apprentice, so I couldn't take off whenever I wanted to, right? So I'm still a union pipe fighter full time. After this fight, I get my union card right after this fight. Okay, I get my union card, and from then on, I could take off whenever I want. From then on, I would take off. I had a lot more time to really focus on fighting instead of doing both. Right, like I was still pipe fighting some, but I could take off 12, 15 weeks at a time, focus all on fighting, really hone my game, and really live the lifestyle instead of like working and training at the same time. So from there on, you'll see a big shift in my game, like where my fighting really started to step up.
Yeah, you're fighting full time, right? So
Yep.
Darren goes on a 5-fight win streak, and another hometown guy who I'm never going to root against. I think at one time your teammate as well, Clay Guida, pulls out of a fight against Chad Mendes.
Yeah.
Where you step in at a last minute notice fight, and in essence, Chad Mendes is ranked number 1. You're on a 5-fight win streak.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of looking at, let me try to get through this guy and maybe sneak into a title fight.
Yeah. I mean, we're fighters, right? I'm thinking, okay, I knew Chad. I watched Chad a million times. He was, a great fighter. He's always been a great fighter. But I was like, man, if I can pull this one off, I'm sneaking right there in a title. Well, I want to, that's my main goal, is shoot for the title. So I'm like, yeah. I didn't like that it was short notice. Like I said, I just knocked out a dude. And, they told me that day, hey, what do you think about fighting Chad Mendes? I'm like, dude, I didn't even have a beer yet. Let me drink my beer for a day or two and eat some food, and I'll tell you about it. You know what I mean? And so, I took that fight. Definitely. It's an opportunity. I don't regret it. I would do it again. I'm that type of fighter. Like, listen, as fighters, we fight. That's what we're supposed to do. And opportunity comes and they go. And that was an opportunity that I had to take, and I think the UFC respects me because of these type of opportunities. Like, most people shy away from opportunity. I'm going to take them at the time. Maybe I'm not going to win, but I'll come in there and I'll do my best. No doubt.
So, Darren, was this the first time you'd ever been knocked out?
Yeah, it wasn't a complete knockout, but he TKO'd me because he dropped me, but I came back up the same way. I thought it was a good stoppage because I was definitely hurt pretty bad, but I wouldn't say a full knockout. It was more of a TKO.
And the telling thing is, one, I'm assuming that's where your relationship with Alpha Male started, as well as in the corners you got Duane Ludwig and Danny Castillo. Duane, former opponent, Danny Castillo, is somebody that's a perennial corner of yours from your switch of teams on out. Did they talk to you at that event about maybe coming out and working out at Team Alpha Male? So
a little bit before that, I met Ryan Faber. I think the first time was at the Colorado when I fought Duane Ludwig. Was the first time I met Ryan Faber, and it was like, we're partying at Clay Guida's motorhome. It's the first time I met Ryan. Hey, I'm Ryan Faber. The dude's making some drinks. Clay Guida, hey, what's going on? We talked for a while, so I got to know Faber a little bit, and we fought on a couple of shows like close by there, and I've talked to him a few times, even before I fought Chad Mendes. And I talked to Joe Benavidez and Chad Mendes before like the UFC summits and stuff like that, and we always got along like like-minded people. I felt like, you know what I mean? Like hard workers, just like that type of thing. So I always got along with these guys. And I always got along with Chad, but this is business. I mean, he wanted what he had something I wanted, and I went for it, you know? And I figured with the type of fighters they had, and they were having a lot of success at the time, you know, wrestlers who could do a little bit of everything. It made sense for my style. You know what I mean? Like the one thing I can tell about Alpha Male, I said, like most of these gyms, they don't try to change your whole style, right? Like you go to some of those gyms, like, okay, I'm a grappler. That's what won me a ton of fights. Won me all my fights pretty much until this point, right? They're not gonna try to change me into a striker. You see that sometimes. Okay, you go to the gym. Okay, now you're gonna be boxer. No. I want to make it better. If I have to do that, I'll do that. But I don't want to shy away from really what I'm good at. And that's one thing they wouldn't do.
That's what I think makes a good coach is somebody who can. A bad coach. Some coaches try and teach everybody the way they do things. A good coach can look at you and go, okay, we're just going to add to what you already do well and add to that. We're not going to try and change you to make you another fighter because they can only coach one kind of fighter. A good coach can coach all kinds of fighters and add to that. So that's why I think. Real quick, I don't know if you saw Chad Mendes just signed to do bare knuckle BKFC. He just signed the other day. What do you think? How do you think he will do there with that punching power and ability?
Well, I knew he was going to do that. You know, I'm really close to the whole team, and I've seen Chad. He told me about this. I mean, I knew about this like a month ago. You know what I mean? I knew about it. We all kept it hush-hush, but I knew about it. He was coming in there, and we have the same boxing coach that does all the mitts and stuff like that, and he was hitting. He was telling me about it. You know, he's like, hey, you know, they gave me a great contract, and I'm like, all right, that makes sense. He told me he was making stuff like, yeah, it makes sense to me. I would do it too. So, as for bare knuckles, man, he hits hard. I mean, I fought a lot of guys, and he's one of the hardest hitting dudes I went against. You know, I think the big thing for him that I told him a few times that he's gonna have to work on. You probably know this now. Work on your placement, right? Because it's easy to swing and break your hands in this. You see it all the time. With the bare knuckles, he has so much power. He's got to work on where he places his punch. Because if you throw a wild punch and it hits him on the top of the head and breaks your hand, change up game. You can't hit that. You know, you got to take away from the power and add more placement of his punches. And I think if he learns that, he's going to do great.
Agreed. Yeah.
One of the
that's funny. He knows a month in advance. I found out yesterday.
Yeah.
I work for the organization.
Yeah. I mean, they were talking about it. He was saying, I'm sure he probably didn't sign it the last minute. He signed it like the week of my fight. I want to say is when I heard he signed it, but he was in talks for a while. He's like, I think I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? So he was planning on coming there and doing it the whole time. I want to say he signed like the week of my fight, like the 20th or something like that, 21st or something like that. It's actually when he actually signed for the bare knuckles.
Wow.
So one of your corners also was Steve Colon that night.
Yep.
Why don't you let us know what kind of influence Steve had with yourself?
All right, Steve and me. So what happened was I was training at Duneland Vale Tudo for a long time, and I wanted a little bit more of a stand-up type of a coach. You know what I mean? And Steve has always been like a really well-known guy in the area, right? And after, I want to say the Omigawa fight is when after the Omigawa fight is when I started training with Steve. From then on, I fought with Steve on maybe 6 or 7 UFC fights. And we split time with Duneland Vale Tudo and Cologne MMA. And he was, he's a good friend of mine. I still keep a really good touch. He's another one of my brothers. You know what I mean? He let me come in, train anytime, worked with me. I mean, he's such a good dude. And he has some of the best fighters for sure in the area and in Indiana, Northwest Indiana. So I worked with him for, quite a bit of my career. A lot of my stand-up stuff, a lot of my jiu-jitsu, Carlson Gracie jiu-jitsu came in. We did a lot of that together. And he just really took care of me and just a great guy in the team. He built that team up. I was part of that too from the beginning. He started maybe a little bit before me. He started his gym, and I knew about him for a long time because when I was wrestling, he was coaching wrestling. So we kind of met the first time then, and then I seen he had some fighters, and like I told him, I was looking for something different. And he's like, hey, come in anytime, you know, train with us. I trained with them a few times. And I was like, you know what? I want to train with these guys more often. And I kind of just made it like a full thing with them guys.
And he's got an
Phenomenal.
awesome gym right now too.
Yeah.
And Angel Man Freddy's in there doing some help with the boxing too. I went up there a while ago and saw him. Like, Angel Man Freddy, just, you know, former world champ, phenomenal guy to have in the gym.
Yeah, he was Angel Man Freddy. I met him quite a bit. He was at one of the old gyms too when I was training there. So yeah, definitely, man. He has, you know, Angel's been in and out, world champion, one of the best boxers ever do it in the area. It's nice to have him and, you know, pick his brain too. And that new gym, some pictures I haven't visited yet. I always visit when I'm in Indiana, train with them a little bit, help teach class or whatever. But I'm looking forward to it. I've seen here. It looks awesome. That's a state-of-the-art gym there.
So we're going to fast forward a few years. And I think there's a couple times in your career where the UFC has said, you know, man, we've had a good run with him. It's kind of time to put him out. Let's just put him in a fight where he probably doesn't win, and we put him out to the pasture and we move on. And they kind of did you a little bit dirty. On July 23rd, 2016, you fight at UFC 209. Chris, you got to check this out. It's in Chicago. They give him Mirsad Bektic. And Mirsad Bektic, Darren is a plus 700 underdog. He's 20 minutes away from his house, you know, in Chicago. And they announce him first. He's not even the second guy to enter the cage.
I did see this fight, but go ahead.
So, you know, Darren, take us through it, and I've got some notes I'd like to run by you as well.
Well, I mean, as far as you said, the UFC did me dirty. I think I'm on a 3-fight win streak. I want to say I'm ranked top 15 in the world. I've been top 15 in the world for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years easily at the time. So I'm.
You were 14. You were 14 and he was 13. So
yeah.
In regards to rankings, you're correct.
Yeah, so it made sense. Like he was the up and comer. He had a lot of hype behind him. He's beat some good guys. So yeah, he was the favorite. But I felt like as the UFC doing me dirty, it wasn't really dirty. I mean, they've always treated me pretty well. This is the fight game, like I said. I mean, 13, 14. This is a guy who I'm on it's not like I lost a fight and I'm fighting this guy. I'm on a 3-fight winning streak. You know what I mean? So yeah, it made sense. I knew he was tough. I didn't think he was gonna be that good of a grappler at the time, but I knew he was a tough up and coming fighter. But man, that's a fight that really made my name known.
All right. So, Chris, if I were to say we got Darren Elkins, stud wrestler, and I got a guy I'm going to bring in that wrestled 1 year his junior year in high school, and he didn't even make it the whole season because he hated it. And that guy's going to out-wrestle Darren Elkins in an MMA fight and have Darren on his back the entire round. You'd probably call me a liar.
Yeah, I do all the time.
Happen? Darren, how does round 1 take place? Because that's an accurate description of it.
Yeah, so he hit me with some big strikes from the beginning, right? And then he took me down. He had me in some horrible positions. He had me crucifix. I had to fight my way out of the crucifix. He cut me with the big elbow in the beginning. I think that's kind of when the fight changed a little because I was like, he cut me and the blood was all in my eyes. I couldn't really see very well. But, you know, I'm a veteran. I don't have to wipe your eyes and stuff. Just act like you see, you know, like, okay, I'm just going to keep going, you know? So I'm making out of these tough positions, but I'm definitely getting, I mean, it was a horrible first round for me. Maybe the worst bad, you know what I mean? Like,
it was a 10-8.
It was a 10-8. 10-8. I mean, it was a bad round. I survived, but what did I say? The second round was a better round for me. I lost the second round, but
right.
I thought the tide started turning.
Darren, in between rounds 1 and 2, the referee goes, wait a minute. Get the doctor in here to look at this guy's cuts. And you see Darren, yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. Yeah. You know, just get out of here. Second round, you lose again. But it's a 10-9 round.
It was 10 round, better round. I stopped some takedowns. I landed some punches. but not a great round. But I definitely lost the round. I'll give you that. But went from like a 10-8 to like a competitive round. You know what I mean?
You mounted a little bit of offense.
Yes.
Hey,
It existed.
I'm gonna be honest. I remember watching this fight, and I was out with a bunch of friends, and I was like, "Oh, this guy's from Indiana. A lot of times, like, yeah, he starts slow, but he picks it up later on." And in the first round, they were all looking at me like, "He gonna pick it up at the end?" I was like, "I think so. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I think he might. Well, usually he does. Maybe I was wrong this time." And we keep going by the end. I was like, I told you guys. So you made me look smart, but at first I was doubting myself. I was like, damn it, Chris. So I looked like a dickhead at first, but I got it at the end.
And you're like, I told you.
I was like, I told you that one shot he was over. I was so cool, dude. Sorry, I ruined the story, but go ahead.
So Darren, when did you know that the tide switched? Like, when did your internal voice tell you, I got this one?
So going into the third round, they come like you said, attacking me and stuff like that, dude. And I'm going, being a sicko I am, dude. I'm smiling, dude, going into the third round. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna touch gloves. You know what I mean? I feel like I can just see in his eyes, like, what the fuck do I gotta do to finish this guy? He's still coming at me. You know what I mean? And I'm like, so he took me down in the first, and I just felt like he was just gassing a little bit. You know what I mean? And we kind of scramble. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna win this scramble. And then I got on top of him for my lock. To like, I went for a leg lock, pushed off the cage, got in the front headlock. And then when I got on top of him, I just felt him fading. I mean, he was fading hard. I'm like, all right, well, this is pretty good for me. Let's see if I can hit him a few times. You know what I mean? And he started standing up, and I hit him really hard. And he kind of wobbled. I'm like, oh shit, I hurt him. You know what I mean? And I started really pouring it on him. And then I punched him and kicked him at the same time. And I mean, I knocked him out. I was like, whoa, I won this fight. Woo. I was surprised myself. That's why you see that celebration. Like, man, I had to dig deep in that one. I mean, I'm a guy who knows how to dig deep, but I dug all the way to the freaking grave for that one.
So Joe Rogan was actually like crying a little bit. Like it was so emotional because what happens is Darrick knocks this guy out and he's just a bloody mess. I mean, to refer to it anything else, and that's with respect, I'm saying you were a bloody mess.
I was.
And Darrick lets out this guttural. Darren, what the fuck is wrong with me? I've known this guy since 2007. All right, yes. Darren lets out this guttural yell, like it was like a barbaric.
Yeah.
And it wasn't faked. It wasn't like a pro wrestling, like Ric Flair woo. It was a barbarian savage coming out of Darren Elkins' body. And Joe Rogan was removed to a little bit of tears. Did you catch that?
I mean, I didn't. I want to say the moment after all the energy and everything going on, I didn't catch it until later on. I watched it later. I watched him on his podcast talking about it. He's crying on there too a little bit about it. You know what I mean? Tearing up. And I mean, that's when I seen him at the time, dude. I had so much emotion going on, and I didn't even think about it. You know, I knew I was happy. I'm thinking, God, I don't know how I just did that, but I dug deep and I believed in myself, and I got the job done. So he's interviewing me, and I'm lost for words mostly, At
that point, in the beginning of the third round, when I had suspected that there was trouble on the other side, was you come out, you land a kick where he claims it lands low, and he takes a couple minutes.
Yes.
And he's a hot prospect, but it wasn't a low kick. It hit him in the stomach, and he was gifted a low blow. He was. And he was 11-0 at the time, and there says a lot about somebody when they've got a lot of fights. For instance, you're 22-5, and he's 11-0, and he's a big favorite, to win the fight. But a real seasoned fighter that was gifted a low blow, which didn't happen, they would have took the full 5 minutes.
I felt like this. Okay, so I didn't remember that you brought this up, but that was like the changing point for me. I watched it on the Jumbotron, and I'm like, man, he needs a break. Like I started like the dog in me is like, he's getting tired. You know what I mean? Like, this is my time. You know what I mean? And So he took the break, and he's thinking it's helping him. But mentally, my mental game changed after that. I'm like, he's getting tired. I'm gonna turn it up because that's what I do. My cardio was phenomenal. The one thing I can say about that fight, I say this all the time, is like my head was clear. Like I took some bad cuts, I took some big shots, but my head was clear. I wasn't concussed. I wasn't anything like that. So I'm like, all right, this is time. I mean, if there's ever been a time he showed weakness, that was the time he showed it. And from then on, it was like the tides turned,
Wow. When you walk to the cage, what are you saying to yourself mentally? Do you have a routine that you go through?
I mean, I can't say there's a routine. It's just like, I'm just trying to focus on the task at hand. Okay, like it depends on the fight. Okay, he's gonna probably come out with this. Okay, do this. It depends on the fight. I mean, like sometimes it's like I get my feet moving, or move my head, the takedowns. I mean, that type of stuff. But it's not like your normal routine. I mean, I get nervous, but when it's time to fight, I don't really get that nervous. Listen, dude. I mean, this is what I've done. This is who I am. I know what I am. It's just, I love to do this. Otherwise, there'd be no other reason for me to do this. Like the money, the fame, that's cool, dude. But I just love to do it, man. I'm a fighter all my life. Like that's who I am. You know what I mean? Like it's fine.
Hey, Darren, let me ask you really fast. Wrestled since you were 5. Were you a street fighter? Did you get into it in the streets, or were you just a street competitor? Oh, okay.
Oh, I was a street fighter from day one, dude. Like, so I was a guy who had a speech impediment really young. So I got picked on a lot. You know what I mean? Like I got picked on horribly all the time in school. But like I said, I started wrestling when I was young, so I learned I was a tough son of a gun. And I learned right away, I shot those bullies, you beat the hell out of them, you beat the hell out of enough bullies, they stop talking about you. And soon enough, dude, I had that reputation like, hey man, you talk about Elkins, he's gonna beat the hell out of you. So, I'll fight a kid on the bus, I'll fight a kid on the playground, I'll fight a kid in the classroom right in front of the teacher if they made me. I became this a brawler, you know what I mean? And I just had that reputation, and I mean, I think that's what I carry with me at the cage, like that no quit attitude. It's like I always have something to prove. You know what I mean? Like even after all these years, I still have something to prove, not to them, but to myself. You know what I mean? Like no way is anybody getting the better of me.
How many concussions do you think you've had?
I don't know. I don't get concussed a lot, dude. I get straight up. I've had some concussions. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't had a lot of concussions. I had one in wrestling for the first time when I first started wrestling in high school. I got a concussion, and that was probably my worst concussion. I got dropped on my head. I've had clear concussions. I want to say Wisniewski gave me a concussion when I fought him. And then from then on, I can't tell you like a clear I got concussed. You know what I mean? I got hit hard. Maybe I got concussed, but I never had like loss of speech or like slurring my speeches or my eyes are changing and stuff like that. I haven't had really any of that. I don't know exactly. I haven't had a lot. So I feel like, and I joke with my wife all the time is my memory's getting better. You know what I mean? I read more books. She's, how do you remember that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm learning stuff still in my life. Like when you stop learning stuff, that's when your brain stops working. So like, I haven't noticed any clear, like most people get like, they ask like, man, you took so many shots you got. No, I swear my memory's getting better. Like I remember stuff way better than back in the day when I was younger. Like my wife tells me all the time, like, how do you remember that? You don't remember anything. I'm like, I'm learning, I'm getting better with it. I learned for books.
Must be the Indiana thing, dude, because I know I think out of my whole fight career, I think I had one concussion. That was probably it.
Yeah, I mean,
we got thick skulls, I guess. I don't know.
Stubborn.
Little brain, big skulls.
Yeah, exactly. Indiana.
Hard to get concussion. You have a little brain, so we're good.
Yeah, it's that Lake Michigan water.
But and that's good because that's a concern for all you guys. You know what I mean? But why don't you talk about Keith? Because Keith was real forthcoming, and Keith suffered from that. did you learn, did you see that happen at Duneland? And, he talks about in practice, he feels like he took a shot, then he turns it up and finishes, and everybody thinks, oh, Keith's fine. He finished his guy. But the reason he turned up the intensity is because he was rocked. Talk about that and how that bakes into your experience, because I'm glad to hear that you're doing good.
Yeah, I've seen Keith. I've cornered Keith in quite a few fights too. I've seen him kind of like get concussed, and he still fights. I mean, he's a fighter, so yeah, he you know what I mean. But he'll be like, "What happened?" You know what I mean? Like he lost like total for. He doesn't remember anything that happens in that fight. He's like, "I don't remember anything. Like I just went on, flight mode." And I'm like, so like. He was saying that he felt it for a while, he was getting at the point too where he's getting more concussed easy, which is a concern. I mean? Like you go from like, let's say a guy like me, I'm a hard guy to really, I can take a punch and I can still take a punch, but when I get stopped taking a punch, that's a clear sign of something going on in my head. And I think that's what he was worried about. It's like he had a good chin, a really good chin. And then all of a sudden it wasn't a good chin until it wasn't anymore. What, something's going on. Maybe it's time for me to just, figure this out.
Have you looked into the psilocybin studies?
No, I've heard a lot about them, but I haven't really read a lot about them. I mean, I know, so we have, who Chris Holdsworth out here in Team Alpha was?
Absolutely.
Well, that's what he was suffering a lot of, that concussion syndrome stuff, right? So that's why he doesn't fight anymore, is he got concussed from training. And then he fought, and his concussion became worse. And he said he's never been since. You know what I mean? Like he still feels to this day, and it's been years since he's fought.
Yes.
So speaking of Chris Holdsworth, he cornered you in your bout against Michael Johnson at UFC Fight Night. They bring Darren in to fight Michael Johnson in St. Louis, and it seems to be a reoccurring theme for you, being brought in to fight somebody in their hometown.
Yeah.
So that was one of your fight of the night bonuses as well, I might add. Michael Johnson comes down a weight class. You're a plus 150 underdog. You're 24-5 at the time. Michael Johnson's 18-12, but it's a brand new weight class. And man, does he hit hard.
Yes. Well, I mean, you talked about fighting a guy in his hometown. I never look at it as a negative, man. I look at it as a positive. He has other pressure, right? So you fight in your own town. All that pressure. People are talking about getting tickets. You got to deal with all the extra stuff, do extra interviews and all that stuff. And then I feed off the crowd both ways, the negative and the positive. If you want to boo me, that pumps me up just as much. Because you know what I mean? Like I said, then I have something to prove. Okay, doubt me. You'll see. Just wait. You know what I mean? So I turn anything into a negative into a positive. So I like fighting a lot of guys in their hometown. Hey, I mean, let's do it. If it's a good place to fight, I didn't love Brazil. I didn't like to fight Brazilians in my own country, but anywhere else, I was pretty happy with.
So the first round, Darren eats like several dozen hard shots, not just like one or two. Like he is absorbing a lot of punishment. And on the other side, it appears that Michael Johnson is overcommitting on his takedown defense. And in between the rounds, Michael Johnson refuses the stool. I love that. When a guy refuses the stool, I'm like, wow. I mean, it's somebody that really put in a hard camp. And Justin Buchholz tells you to capitalize on the overcommitment of his takedown defense, at which time, you get it to the ground, take his back, and on a fight that was very one-rounded against you, or very one-sided against you in the first round, you turn it around and you land I think it was a rear naked choke, set by second round.
So the first round, it was a rough round. I mean, he's fast. I mean, he's a fast athletic guy. I mean,
hard.
I'm not that fast athletic guy. I know who I am, but that's the thing with me is like, I know the first round is not going to – if I lose that first round, I don't get flustered. Most people will be like, oh, I'm losing this fight. I'm like, yeah, I lost the first round. That's – when don't I lose the first round? You know what I mean? Like, very few fights have ever. It's fine. I don't stress it. But I started getting his timing of the kicks, right? So he threw leg kicks a few times, and I just missed catching him. Like, I don't catch a leg kick when he throws it. I catch it as soon as they almost, like, they hit, and then I catch the leg kick so they don't change it up on me. And I was just missing catching a couple of those kicks by inches, right? So I missed it, just missed it. In the second round, he threw that leg kick, and I caught that leg kick right away and took him down. And then from then on, I landed a couple punches, took his back, and submitted him right away. So this is a timing thing. I had his timing down with those kicks in the second round and right away. So, and once on the ground, I knew he didn't have anything for me. I mean, he's a tough guy, but on the ground is not his thing, you know?
It seemed that you and Justin had a really good, like, just a connection based on his corner interview. Was it difficult for you to see him leave Team Alpha Male shortly after that?
Yeah, I mean, I did have a good connection with Buchholz, you know. He cornered me in all my fights in that Team Alpha Males up to that point. I felt like I was one of his guys. He took me under his wing. But, I mean, the thing is I came out there for Team Alpha Male, right? He was kind of going to go do his own thing. And I'm like, I like Buchholz. I'll never say anything bad about him, but I'm out here for Team Alpha Male. It's not just for Buchholz. You know what I mean? I had a great relationship with Danny Castillo, and I had a great relationship with Chris Holdsworth. I mean, those guys wasn't going to come with us. So, I mean, I had, you know, Chris Holdsworth is one of my best friends. I mean, out here, I have probably the best relationship with him, you know? So it wasn't like one of those things where I think he kind of wanted me to keep training with him after that one. And it was like, you know, they put me in a situation where I kind of needed to make a choice, but it wasn't really a choice. He didn't have a gym. He kind of did his own thing in like these little gyms they could get at, whatever, hold pads with. But I'm not going to put myself through that. I mean, I came out here because the nice thing about Team Alpha Male is we have everything all in one gym. We have the strength and conditioning coaches. We have the boxing and Muay Thai coaches. We have the wrestling coaches. We have, you know, jiu-jitsu coaches, all in the same area. What I didn't like about Indiana is I had to go to gym to gym to gym to gym. So I'm doing a lot of traveling. And I don't miss that 45 minutes one way, 45 minutes back, come back, get a little bit of a break, eat a little bit, and travel again. Those days were, I mean, that's hard. That's a hard day. And I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, no, I get that. So further on in your career, you go on a 4-fight losing streak. It's hard for you. You got Alexander Volkanovski, who you just talked about, Ricardo Lamas, Ryan Hall, Nate Landwehr. You then fight on one of the ESPN cards against Eduardo Garagorri.
Yep, Garagorri.
Which was a fantastic fight on your end. Garagorri's from Uruguay, and Darren finally comes in as a favorite. This is one of the few fights that you come in as favorite, and during this bout, you get the featherweight takedown record.
Yep.
That's quite an achievement.
I mean, I'm starting to get all these records now, especially featherweight. I have the most top game, the most takedowns, the most top control. I want to say the second most punches thrown in the featherweight division, the second most wins in the featherweight division, the most submission attempts, couple other ones I have. So, I mean, I think I'm the first featherweight division to have over 2,000 significant strikes with over 50. So, I mean, but this is my at this point was my 23rd UFC fight. So it's one of those things where it's like the hard work's been put in. I'm one of the longest guys in the division now. So I'm starting to try to break all these records before I put it to the end, you know?
And your last fight against Darrick Minner, you came in at a plus 135. No, I'm sorry. You were a minus 160. You had 21 first round. I apologize. Darrick Minner was a minus 160 favorite. He had 21 first round finishes, and you're at 26-9 at a plus 135, and it's your 24th UFC appearance. It's insane. With that bout, another come from behind victory. And is that your 10th come from behind in terms of fights won as an underdog?
10th win as an underdog. So that's the most in UFC history. Man, you know, I asked, he talked a lot about how he wanted to fight me, but I actually asked that matchup. I mean, I knew available. I'm like, you know what, this is the guy listen, if you think about the stylistically of me and him, right? So what he's really good at is the guillotine. He has some pretty crafty submissions, and he's a great first round fighter, right? A great first round fighter, but he quits after the second, third, all the time. He quits. You know what I mean? So it's like we talked about it even in this fight. Like, hey, listen, if you get past the first round, you're gonna have like an 80% chance of winning. But you gotta get past that first round, which isn't easy with him. Don't get me wrong; he's a tough guy. But it was like once I got past that first round, it was all me. I knew that, and my coaches, that's one thing we preached. And he came out a little bit, came out with some submissions and stuff that, he put me in some bad positions I thought it could be better in, but I stayed the damage away. I did my thing in there and survived, and he just faded from then on. He had one last ditch effort in the beginning of the second, and he just found a way to get out of there.
Minner's jiu-jitsu is nuts. It is incredible. It's very difficult to figure out.
No, he does.
Darren, do you feel like there's a lot of people who this game is so mental, and obviously it's like it feels like you break a lot of people. Like people have so much ability and so much talent, but they just don't have that not quitting attitude. And it's like if things don't go their way, they're front runners. A lot of people, you know what I mean? It seems like you are the epitome of just enduring that and just being mentally tough. Do you feel like that's what you attribute a lot of your victories to, just being mentally tough for the most people?
Yeah, I'm different. Like mental toughness, and just cardio and just being tough, man. I mean, three things. Like I'm going to be in your face no matter what. I'm going to keep coming. My cardio is going to be off the charts every time. So you better come in shape. And I can find ways to survive because I'm mentally in there. You know what I mean? And like when most people come in the second or third rounds, they're gonna go. They lost the first round. They're gonna go, oh man, I'm losing this fight. I don't do that. It's a new round every fight. Guess what? It's the second round. Oh, you want to fight me in the third round? Good luck. Here we go. You know what I mean? So the mental part is my game. I mean, the athletic ability, so. I'm pretty athletic. I'm pretty strong. I can do some of that stuff. I'm a guy who knows what I'm good at, and that's where I'm at in my life. Is like I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at. Am I trying to get better at that stuff? Yes. Am I working with strength and conditioning guys? Yeah. But at the end of the day, like I don't want to say I'm gonna go out there and just destroy a guy because of my athletic ability. It's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna go do a double backflip tomorrow. It's not gonna happen. But I'm gonna break you. I'm gonna keep coming. I'm gonna see what you're really made of because you're gonna have to if you're gonna fight. See what kind of will you have,
So you're 38 years old now.
37, not quite.
Are you 37?
37.
Stand
A little bit longer.
corrected.
I'm trying every year I can, so don't take that one yet.
How many more fights do you think you're going to take?
I don't have a number, Mike. I'm not going to be the guy. I think the worst thing to do is put numbers on it. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to reevaluate every fight. I think what I need to do is every fight I do is, see how I'm feeling, see how I'm doing, and then talk to my family about it. I'm not going to say, okay, I'm fighting till I'm 39 or I'm going to do 2 more fights because that's never a good thing. You know what I mean? I'm just going to fight every fight, see how I feel, see if I think I still got it, and go from there,
That's awesome.
Yeah. Go ahead, Miguel.
I was just going to ask, how many fights do you have left on your contract with the UFC? Or is
let's see, that's 2. I got 2 more.
Okay.
Now, do you think it's important? Like a lot of times, a fighter is the last person to kind of realize that they're starting to slow down. Do you have a good support crew around you? The wife, the trainers. Do you think they'll be honest with you and be like, "Hey, man, we might want to think about this"? Will they talk to you like that, or is everybody going to be like, "Come on, let's keep going, Darren. Let's get more money"? Or what do you think?
No, I mean, I think they're the most truthful guy. I mean, I came off those 4 fights, you know what I mean? And we talked about it. I mean, like, hey, think about it. They never told me to retire, but I mean, it's hard for a fighter to go, hear from a coach, right? Because listen, we want to be that guy, right? That still has it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm never going to, but we all slow down. The age catches up. Is there one thing that's going to happen is it's going to catch up with us. And, I told him, I'm like, hey, what do you guys think? And they're like, hey, we'll see, you know what I mean? And I started really changing the way I trained, changing. You know, I don't spar hard anymore with the boxing gloves really anymore. I work more with a boxing coach, and I don't really get hit hard in sparring ever because I don't really spar that much like that, like hard. I only train with that I trust. You know what I mean? Like, I don't train with the guy that has something to prove. Like, you know how it is, Chris. The guy that comes in there like, that's Chris Lido. I gotta go after him. Or that's Darren Elkins. People I can fight, you know. So it's like, no. I'm only sparring with certain people that I trust now. I'm taking care of my body better. I'm making sure that, you know, I mean, that type of stuff. And I feel like that's the benefit for me is like, all right, I feel young again. For a while, I thought, man, I'm aging fast. And then all of a sudden, it's like, man, I got life again. And as far as you said, the coaches and wife thing, listen, the big thing, and my wife knows, is like my wife has a good job. I'm a union pipe fitter. I have a lot of different other skills. Fighting is not the end of me. I can do whatever I want. That's who I am. You know what I mean? I'm a hard worker. I can do whatever I want in my life. So I don't want it to be done yet, but it's something. If it's that time, I'm okay. I can move on in my life. I mean, it's not easy for us fighters, but I know who I am, you know.
You thought about opening a gym somewhere?
And no, I haven't really thought about opening a gym really. I mean, I kind of, call me crazy. Maybe I'll change my mind, but I kind of just want to disconnect when I'm done. I'm that type of guy. I mean, maybe I'd coach a little bit wrestling or something like that, but I don't see myself sticking around. It's hard for me to watch and be around that type of fun anymore. Maybe I do jiu-jitsu or something like that, but I don't see myself being involved in a whole lot of MMA when I'm done, you know? Yeah, I'm that guy. I'm the opposite. Like, I like fighting. I like competing, but I don't know. Like, maybe I'm around it. Maybe I'm not. I'm not like one of those guys that's like, I'm going to open my own gym. I'm going to do this. I'm like, nah, maybe not. Maybe I'll do another thing in my life. Maybe I train a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Maybe I help guys here and there, but it's not one of those things that I want to do all my life anymore. Like, I've committed so much to this in my life. It's like, maybe I want to go on to the next step of my life. You know what I mean? Like, actually enjoy and do other things, you know, and learn different skills.
Have you gone hunting with Chad Mendes?
No, I haven't. I haven't. I know. You know, the thing is, me and Guida's gonna go fishing here pretty soon too, because he's out here and he's got his own like fishing charters and stuff out here. So I'm gonna do a fishing charter with Clay hopefully soon.
Nice. Now, so let me ask you: you do your 2 fights, you win. The family, everybody, still, you know, they're there. You can make your choice. The UFC comes with a 4-fight deal, 6 more fights. Is that something you consider, or?
But I don't know. Like I said, I would consider it. Like, I think I have more than 2 fights in me. I do.
Okay.
I have a few more fights than that. I'm 37. I'm going to fight. I know I'm going to fight before the end of this year as long as I don't get hurt. So that'll be 1 fight left in my contract. So I got maybe another 1.5 years, 2 at least. You know what I mean? I feel like that's, like I said, could it change? It could change tomorrow. I could retire tomorrow, maybe something. But as of now, I think I got more than that. I'd like to do more than that. And, you know, the UFC's you know, they love the way I fight. They treated me. I mean, I went on that 4-fight losing streak, and I thought for sure I'd get cut. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, most people are like, that's the line. I mean, you lose more than 2, usually you're on that line, right? So I lose that 3rd one. I'm thinking, okay, maybe. And like, no, you're good. So I lose the 3rd one. I lose the 4th one. I'm thinking, I'm done. I'm done. You know what I mean? But you know, he came up. Listen, I love the way you fight. If you want to keep doing this, let me know. You always be with us. You know what I mean? He's like that. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that. But I think that's because they know that I've always been the guy who takes the fights. I never made an excuse. I was always that guy. Yeah. Do I want more money? Yeah. Do I try to get more money? Yeah. Am I unreasonable? Never. I'm not going to say anything unreasonable. You can't. You know what I mean? I know how to do this. I know how the sport is. So they treated me good, and I've always treated them good. So I think we have a really good understanding of each other. And I think that's why I am where I'm at right now, you know?
You know, Darren, people always say, how'd the UFC treat you? How's Dana White and this? And I was like, man, if you just go and you fight your ass off, they're going to like you no matter what. And they're like, man, if you come and you you're easy to deal with, and you just come and fight. They'll tell you just like they told you, and I know like they told me, like, we'll let you fight as long as you want if you come and fight like you do. All right. I mean, that's all you gotta do. You come there and you perform and you fight as hard as you can. They're gonna like you. And I mean, I guess as long as you're a good fighter like you are, but I mean, that's all they ask.
I feel like if you're a good fighter, you'll run your mouth. You know what I mean? You get some other people, they forget. You know what I mean? They think they're bigger than UFC now. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay, you can be that guy, but you're not gonna last very long if you keep running your mouth. Like, make the bosses mad. See what happens. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If you go
it's stupid
down and you keep on fighting your ass off, they're gonna give you more money. They're gonna treat you better. Trust me, that's gonna happen. But don't do too many waves. Don't make too many waves. You know.
Excellent, man. That's a good interview, Chris.
Hey, man, that was awesome. I appreciate it. Like I said, love having you be an Indiana guy. It makes me proud to be another one of you like that. But I mean, man, just great stuff. Great hearing your interesting story, getting involved with the sport and how you evolved and everything. And it's just awesome. And I thank you for your time, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. We got a lot of retired fighters and fighters talking about their full career and getting an active guy and seeing a guy who's sharp and still, like, you know, in the mix and stuff. There really is a difference, man. So thank you very much for a good wake-up call, man, and good luck in everything you do, brother.
Absolutely. Man, that was fantastic. I love hearing the old school grind, especially, you know, I bring Darren up a lot. You know, I'm always like, man, old school guy, not with that, but he's still fighting. But he brings forth that I think that Midwest grind. I mean, the dude gets, like he said, he gets beat up a lot in the first round and comes back and just beats him the next two rounds. He's just a hard-nosed guy, and I love that about him. One of my favorite things to watch. And he brought up, you know, how that started and how it comes, and his mentality, dude. I love it.
Well, the thing with Darren is he's never in the middle of controversy. So in this interview, what we discovered was when Buchholz left Team Alpha Male, he was trying to take Darren and probably a few other teammates with him. And Darren said, you know, it's not really much of a choice. I think you read the situation wrong. I'm here for Team Alpha Male. You know, good luck, you know, and you know, whatever it is you got going. And, you know, it's things like that we uncover that don't come out until much afterward. And it's because we've watched all the fights, we're paying attention, and we address it. Like every single interview, we get something like that.
And you know what I enjoyed kind of unearthing there is, you know, he came from Keith Wisniewski's gym, Duneland Vale Tudo, before heading out west, right? And, you know, Keith is a guy who put in, you know, 50 fights in the 50 Fight Club. And Darren's probably not going to get the 50 fights. And that's a good thing. You know, they corrected some of the mistakes that drag out your career and you suffer for it. And it's interesting that he's been able to do that. And one of the reasons I think that is, and he pointed out, is he was focused from the get-go. Right off the bat, he was like, I'm going to be a pro. Before his first pro fight, he was ready to do that. Not like, you know, I'm going to be a superstar 20 years ago, but he was ready to dedicate himself completely. There are a lot of guys that pussyfoot around, and I think Elkins, that's what makes him, you know. Once he was focused, you got the best of Elkins.
So, Chris, you've seen in the past, you have a lot of people tell you they are going to make it to the UFC, and they may have a ton of talent, but the dedication and discipline is something that I'm not going to say they don't have. It's they don't even have an understanding of what that means. Drinking out the window, diet needs to be locked down, going to bed at 10:30, even like after a fight, like the day after, instead of celebrating. If you want to make it to the highest levels of mixed martial arts, those are things that are absolute musts. And that's not even a question of whether you think about it. That's something you're already doing on your own. And then the discipline kicks in.
That's the weird thing, is it's so hard to make. You have to have a great amount of natural ability to be good nowadays, but you also, a lot of people get used to that, but you also just have to have an incredible work ethic and dedication. Those are two things that people don't understand. Like, I've seen many people who are great athletes, they came in all the time, they just didn't work harder. They're great athletes, they come in all the time, but they just you have to have all three different things to make it work. And a lot of people have two out of the three, and you ain't making anywhere in 2 out of 3. Everybody there has had great athletic ability. They work really hard, and they're putting in the hours. You just don't get there otherwise. So Darren, like he brought it up a couple of times. What I lack in athletic ability, I make up for with my dedication and determination. He definitely does. That's evident in a lot of his fights. I feel like some of his opponents are better than him, but he just outworks them, man. And I love that about him.
And Miguel and I were talking earlier off camera. Okay, so we've got a couple of the big upsets where he came back at the end. You know, we addressed those in his UFC career. I'd like to kind of get the other side. All right, hey, Bektic, you're dominating. What are you thinking round one? What are you thinking round two? What happened round three? To kind of get that opposing side of what was taking place in that match, it's a story. And it's a story that's incredibly fascinating to us, like diehard fight fans, especially when you're getting a 10-8 round, your first round, 10-9 round, the second round, and then just collapse the third round. You ran your engine on red and you ran out of gas. It's incredible.
Especially you got a guy who's 9-0 or 11-0 or whatever he was, and you're going in there and you're thinking you're going to just mollywop this guy, and you're doing it, and then you're like, why is he not done? What is going on here? Mentally, you've never had this happen, and it happened right there. His worst nightmare came true. He got dropped. He got knocked out because he mentally broke.
So in our Walt Harris interview that we did, months ago, Walt even said it when he fought Overeem. He's like, at the end of the first round, we spoke to each other. I knew I was in trouble, and he knew that I knew I was in trouble. And, those types of communication it's incredibly fascinating, especially on our end.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we got a full career retrospective with Darren Elkins, and the cool part about it is he's not done with his career, so we're gonna have to do it again. But it's a good taste. Enjoy, and hit like, subscribe, comment, share. Tattoos. We're okay.
Whatever. Not like, share, subscribe tattoos. Lights Out podcast tattoo, not the like, share, subscribe.
Yeah. Go tattoo your kids.
We don't want that.
It's good. It's good stuff. But
kids, you don't even need your parents' permission. Go ahead and get the tattoo. We're going to tell you that right now.
And children, if your parents have a PayPal button, go into our description and you can donate money right to us without asking them permission. You can do that. Children.
So now we're really going to find out if anybody gets to the end of these podcasts.
Yes, we will.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.